Thank you to Craig for joining us today to talk about the devil's lettuce. Craig, thanks for joining us.
Hi, thanks for talking to me about all this.
Yeah, so Craig is actually on a road trip right now. He has not been kidnapped.
I'm in the back of a van. I'm not. I have a weed pillow in the back of the van,
Yeah,
so
see, he has his
I'm doing.
whoopee. Today I wanted us to talk about Christian values, the spiritual side of cannabis, and what you are doing as an ordained minister to kind of bring those worlds together and have a conversation with a group of people that, like I said, they think cannabis is a sin. So, where should we dive into all this, Craig?
Oh, wherever you want. I've been talking about this for 3 years, and a lot of people are still uncomfortable, but people like you are making it easier.
Yeah. Well, I guess we can start with the complete shock value of the fact that before you were working in cannabis, you were the pastor for the Triple X Church. So, why don't we just start there? Give us a brief little history of how you keep bringing Christian values with these really alternative and demonized things.
Yeah, so at 16, I decided to give my whole life to Jesus. That's what I signed up for. So I became a youth pastor. This was early 2000, so internet came out, and every kid found porn, free music, and a chat room. And so to address that topic, it's crazy to think back out of all the things I could have done when the internet started. I started xxxchurch.com. We said we were the number one Christian porn site. We launched it at the largest porn show in the country. 20 years later, 150 million people to the site. A lot of people were able to talk about an issue that otherwise they kept quiet. And then the church didn't know how to respond to that. So the church kind of keeps quiet when they don't know what to do. They don't want to be wrong. So I was then the guy that you brought in to talk about porn, why the pastor could go take a vacation and they could put the PG-13 or the R-rated, he's going to come in and do it. They could check the box and the church could move on. But for 20 years, I sat with people that were struggling, whether that was a kid that found porn for the first time, a husband that was dealing with this, a wife who thought her husband was committing adultery because he looked at porn. So, all those things, the secret nature of it. I was on speed dial at times for people that were on TMZ because they sent dick pics. So, I was kind of that guy that um, eventually, like, it didn't work for me. Meeting people on their worst day of their life, that's when you call me, and I never knew why I did it. I never knew kind of consciously. I don't know. The internet came out, and 20 years later, I'm like the porn guy. And I was like, you know what? It's not really me. And turns out I'm the pot guy. And so then that's confusing because I'm against pornography. But after my dad died in 2013, I got sick. And I'm 46 now. So at the time, I'm in my 30s, but I've never experienced not being able to work, not being able to travel. And I just got all these prescriptions. Maybe you have seizures. Maybe you have an onset of MS. Like these diagnoses were just like maybes.
Yeah. Just
And then I watched
throwing stuff against the wall.
then I watched a weeds documentary, and my wife said, "Why don't you go get your medical marijuana card and try that?" And that started everything for me. It you know, not just woke me up, it slowed me down. It started to heal me. It started and of course I'm an evangelist, so I started showing it as soon as I knew it was good and it wasn't the devil's lettuce. I started showing it to any pastor that would come over to my house. We'd order pizza. I would just say, "Here's how to do this." And then eventually I said, I don't want to be known for all the things I'm against. And how come somebody can't come out there and give Christians permission to try this plant? I'd never abused it. I'd never tried it until I was 30 something years old. And I found it to be a good thing in my life. And I wanted to let people know that they should be able to try this. And if they needed a pastor's permission, um, man, I'll be the one to give you that. And so we started
Yeah.
ChristianCannabis.com on 420 of 2019.
I love it. And you said something that just really spoke to me because I felt that too, that cannabis, it woke me up and slowed me down. And if you're thinking about Christian values, and I think about the things that cannabis brought to my life, a Christian would say yes to all of those things. I found a deeper connection with myself
Yeah.
and with nature. And as someone who was a mutt growing up as far as church was concerned, I'm from a blended family, and one week I'd be at a Baptist church, and then it was a Catholic and Episcopalian and a Methodist sometimes, and the Foursquare. And you're getting this message from all these different people. And, as a young person, I recognized, oh, well, they're all climbing the same mountain. They're just
Mhm.
doing it from different spots. They're
Yeah.
starting at different spots. They all want to go to the same place. But if you were to talk to them, their way was the right way. And, these are the
Yeah.
people that are going to heaven. These people
Yeah.
aren't. And I just was like, Christians are the most judgy things I've ever been around. And so as a grown up, I chose no church. And cannabis brought me back to this spiritual place in my
Yeah.
life, and where I was able to think, okay, let's rethink this God thing, and
Yeah.
what place God is going to have in my life. I was always the person that I'm like, I know there's something bigger out there, but I just call it universe
Yeah.
because that is a word that is not demonized. It's not so hot people don't want to touch it.
Yeah.
But eventually, it's like God's like, it's God.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
if you want my nickname to be universe, but at some point you have to acknowledge that I'm God and I'm with you all the time. And literally, cannabis, if it weren't for cannabis, I would not even be having this conversation with you.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm an ordained minister. I've been a pastor. Like, it's been a calling on my life. And so I know I've read the Bible. I know how to pray. I know how to do all those things. What I found with cannabis is it quieted me down, the mind. I didn't need to talk. I would sit in bed after everyone would go to bed, my first few days and years with cannabis. I would never share, you know, here I am running a ministry all about accountability and openness, and I'm like sneaking cannabis at night, not from my family knew, but I was like, okay, I'm only going to do it at night. But I found myself in some deep meditative spaces where things came in, and I know the voice of the Lord, like it's spoken, like it says in the Bible, like my sheep know my voice and they do what I say. Like I've heard it before. I've moved my family across the country for it. I've given, my livelihood for 20 years because of this call, this knowing. And I'm sitting in bed with cannabis, and it's like not just, oh God, it's so much more clear. And then you're like, wait, am I high? No, I'm sitting here and I'm able to receive. And so when I started, my prayer life changed to just words, oh, to just listening. And then I was like, man, I was on a quest. I read a book called Cannabis and Spirituality and got a hold of the author, and he invited me to a spiritual plants conference in Canada. So I was like, hell yes, yes. Like there's other people out there. And this guy, he's sharing me about just the history of cannabis. And somehow along the way, we've gotten it wrong here, obviously in our country and many others. But um, man, we're at a place today where I just feel like it's time. And if if you want that awakening, and if you know it, like if you've been in church or you have that, you hear a song, you hear something stirring you, if you just sit quiet with cannabis, oh, it'll make me anxious or I'll be fearful. No, it might show you something. It might be your greatest teacher. And I don't know, like a lot of Christians at first were like, oh, but we want to give so much power to Jesus and God, and we don't want to give power to anything else. And I'm like, this isn't becoming my savior, but it's a damn good plant, and I think we should be able to enjoy it. And if it shows you
Well,
something about yourself, then like use it.
and the thing that cannabis taught me about that is that God is not outside of me. God is within me. And so to be able to feel God, it's like I am divine as is everyone else. Everyone else is me having a different experience because the connectedness and oneness of all that is and that we are. And, one of the things that has impacted me the most that I learned is love is and everything else isn't. So even the demons, even all of the things that you're being shown, it is for you. And,
Yeah.
cannabis is an excellent teacher in that regard.
Yeah. Yeah. That idea of duality. Um, I mean, I understand Jesus. I understand, obviously, God, the universe, however you want to put language around it. I think more religions are, there's more similarities in religion than there are, oppositions. Like, we're more connected and more united than you actually think. But the game is like they keep us all divided. But I've met some of the most spiritual people that, man, they don't maybe read the Bible the same way I do. The way I look at Jesus's teachings, the red letters, is the I in Jesus isn't just about him. He didn't need all the jewelry. He didn't need all of us to have the bloody photo of him on the wall, or the cross necklace. Like, he was telling us what we're capable of. And it took some of these spiritual plants for me. Cannabis was a start. Ayahuasca was something that really showed me there's no separation with me and God. And sometimes Christians, like, they want to give so much power to Jesus and forget the Holy Spirit. And so you can call it source, spirit. You and I, yes, we have it. We have what Jesus says is capable of and what was in him, but we forget it, and we want to deflect all that at times to Jesus or some other ruler and give our power away. And I'm sitting
Yes.
in my
And yeah,
bed,
you fix it. Yes.
go, I'm
Take Jesus, take the
yeah,
wheel.
Jews, yeah, all
Yeah.
that. And I'm like, no, like, you know how to fucking drive. Like, as Christians, or however you want to call yourself, like, we are powerful people. Jesus was showing us what is capable. And I don't know, for cannabis, there was something in me that just lit a fire. I was like, oh my gosh, like, like, I can do this. And yeah, duality, like, no longer was I separate from God. And man, that puts so much distance sometimes between you and your prayers and this, and then you have to be good. And I was like, you know what? I'm fine. I don't want to be the porn pastor. I want to tell people to smoke cannabis or try it. And I got my mom to try a topical that I it's I'm not just starting people off with J's, and just say, here's
Yeah.
top shelf stuff. It's like, hey, there's studies that are coming out just about CBD and anxiety, depression. So it's like, I don't care where you start. It's a good starting space. If it's legal in your place you live, man,
Mhm.
explore this. Talk to somebody at your local dispensary, you know, and find out what this could do for you, and sit quiet with it, and maybe see what shows up. Like, listen to your worship music, see what shows up. And for me, I knew the church wasn't ready for what we were doing. But the great thing about that is, like, the church has been late or last on a lot of issues, and I'm tired of that. And
Amen.
so, um, the week I told everybody I was going to quit my job at Triple X Church. I'm going to fly a plane on 420. Kanye's doing, his Sunday service. I I knew I'd launch the plane. I've done this before with Triple X Church. I kind of make waves, and I knew people would be responsive. The New York Times, all that. That's easy. The church, they're the hard ones. In 2019, the next week, the biggest supporting church ever in my life, that's had financially supported my other ministry like no other church. The senior pastor got on the stage and says, "We're no longer supporting Craig Gross. He's a drug dealer." And first of all, I was like, I wish I could be a drug dealer right now. I don't know how to put products on shelves. We'll get there. But so I'm technically not a drug dealer or anything. I am just an advocate of this plant. And he pulled all their support. And within minutes, I got emails that said, I use CBD. The pastor doesn't know. I traveled to another state. This is a church in Ohio. So where I can get this, but please, like, keep doing this. And in the last 3 years, I've seen slowly those doors go, okay, Craig's not a dealer after all. And I've assembled some of the greatest people inside of cannabis to come on board to help me build this brand, to take this back to the church, because that's what I know. That's what I know since 7 years old. You might try and kick me out of it, but I'm coming back with this plant, because this plant,
I
I
have
watched,
something new to put in the offering plates.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I had, on a personal note, after 6 months after launching Christian Cannabis, I met a lot of people in the industry that opened doors when I found out my wife of 20 years had cancer. I didn't know about Rick Simpson oil. I was, that's me. I'm going to start this thing and I don't know everything. I know very little. Like, I was a pastor. I'd never tried weed till my late 30s. So Rick Simpson oil, I watched heal her of cervical cancer before her surgery. And yet people are telling me she's got cancer because I'm in sin. And I was like, no, no, no. I'm being prepared for new medicines and new plants. And one of the things we're going to work on Christian Cannabis is an endometriosis tincture for women, so it doesn't get to the point of cancer. And like, we're going to change things. And
Yeah.
that's what I'm like. I've given everything the last 3 years to this, almost gone bankrupt, lost all my businesses inside the Christian world. And now I'm like, no, just wait. Like, we're going to do this thing. Like, I'm not stopping. And
Yeah.
thank you for, being somebody to come on and give us a chance to talk.
Certainly. And, I had a list of things that I had written down that I was like, these are the unchristian things that are happening amongst Christians. And you actually touched on a number of them when you were just talking. So I want to go through these this list I
Okay.
made, and you can tell me your thoughts, maybe
Okay.
tell me a story, something. The first one is demonizing or condemning things that they don't understand. The biggest
Hmm.
one is judging and canceling people.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And this is how they do it. THC, the Bible says mind altering. Okay, THC, like, okay, like an altered state of mind, yet they've got a bottle of alcohol in their hand. And I'm like, that's a higher vibration here with cannabis, and alcohol is clearly a lower vibration. So you don't know what you're talking about. I think sometimes Christians, we're the first to say what we're for or against based on somebody else's opinion. Oh, the Bible said this. How? Okay, obey the laws of the land. Uh, we've been wrong on a lot of our laws. Like, look at big pharma. Like, it's really clear why cannabis isn't, federally legal. So I think Christians, yeah, tend to talk about things that they don't really have info or data on. And so, man,
Y-
get to know cannabis. That's all. Like, and then make your own decision.
Yeah. I feel like they just take the Bible and even they have no information backing what they're saying, besides maybe they've read a couple of pages of a scripture, but they don't understand what they're talking about. And so their argument is it's just ridiculous. And the part that is so insane to me, which is another thing I wrote down, is that they're denying our natural relationship with Mother Nature. Like, why do they think that the God that created the heavens and the earth made this plant that helps us and is clearly, changing people's lives for the better? How can they deny that?
Yeah. Well, this is how they could deny it until they need it, or until they're aware of it. Like, your wife gets cancer, your husband gets cancer, and there's an alternative medicine out there that has, a stigma around. It doesn't matter. You don't want to do chemo, you don't want to do radiation, you don't want to die. Like, all right, here's an alternative. But most people aren't at that point. And so for me, um, my old business partner, like, he's famous because he wrote a poem called Jesus is Greater Than Religion. 36 million views on YouTube. We started a publishing company together, and we ran some masterminds for some of the biggest Christian celebrities. And I'm with that group right after I launched the plane in 2019. And Jeff Bethke's his name. He said, Craig, I'm from Seattle. I don't have a problem with cannabis. But everything I'm doing with my brand around the Bible, around this, around families, like, we can't be partners. And I was like, I get it. I get it. because I'm bad for business right now, but I'm not on the wrong side of history on this one. And so in 5 years, like when there's a Christian brand, it's just kind of like you'll sacrifice something today, man, for what you don't know. It's like, okay. And so I just had to sit with that going, I'm being asked to leave all these rooms, not because I knew they're strongly opposed. They didn't know. I sat with the biggest church in America, Pastor Craig Groeschel. He said, I don't know anything about cannabis. I don't want to be wrong. Could you eat one brownie without having another? And I said, Craig, you have 46,000 people that go to your church in Oklahoma. Somebody's going to come up to you after church and say, hey, Pastor, like, I'm sick, or what do you think about this? We can't not have answers anymore. And he's like, well, you go through the fire and then there'll be less smoke. And so I'm challenging churches now, like Life Church, to say, let me bring our team. Let's have a sit down with your staff. Let's have a sit down with your congregation so we can educate what we know about this. So you don't just stand up there as a pastor and go, I don't know. Like, what is the deal? Like,
Yeah.
we got to be smarter than that when these tools can change and heal people. And we don't want to take the time. And I
Yeah.
get it. Like, we've been wrong. They've been wrong on the gay issue. We've been wrong on so many issues. But there's outliers inside of Christianity that go, you know what? No, you're welcome here. And so who's Craig Gross to
Yeah.
give you permission? I'm like, okay, somebody just needed to do it. And I, yeah, that's all it takes. Like, somebody to say, why don't you just try it and tread lightly when you go in there, or ask somebody, don't just jump into this. But this plant is good recreationally, it's good medically, and I believe it's great spiritually.
So my chest is pounding because I got fired up after the first guy of not wanting to do business with you, because I'm like, yes, you get it, but I remember a campaign when I was coming up. What is it? WWJD? What would Jesus do? Like, Jesus is the OG of hanging out with the alt crowd.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So the fact that the leaders of these churches were like, you know what? You do it first. We'll sit back and watch. Like, that to me speaks volumes.
And that's why people are leaving, like leaving religion, period. I mean, COVID, we didn't have many pastors inside Christianity that actually had the courage to keep their churches open. That's another thing. We just lay down and we just go, oh, well, we don't know what we don't know. So we become less and less relevant. And this next generation doesn't need church like our parents. Our parents were, okay, we're into tradition. Our generation's like, I don't know, I'll go. This next generation, if you don't start speaking to things that they're interested in their timeline, not in your, well, we'll get to that in 5 years. Like, no, now you're going to lose them. And man, I think we've got to change. Like, I have so many friends that are working in churches that go, Craig, I don't even know on my staff if I'm in a I'm in Seattle. We have a drinking policy, but we have no set policy for our staff on weed because nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody has any answers. And so then guess what? We don't talk about it. And I watched for 20 years churches avoid the topic of pornography on the internet because it was like, oh, we don't want to deal with that. And so I came in and did it. But I was like, we can't wait that long here because people's lives are at stake. Like, when you can see what I've seen with my eyes, the healing nature of this plant, like, yeah, we've got to be an advocate of it. And Christians love their own products. So I know that. I had to change my one secular tape for five secular tapes for one Christian band. So we're not going to do that to you in the cannabis thing, but we're going to create products that speak to the audience. We have some gummies that are going to be called first timers, and it's just a 2-pack. You and your spouse, or you and a friend, and it's 5 milligrams, and it's like, you know, our weed and our other products will have
First communion.
we have some communion wafers for your own, and then we have some our products will have high CBD and low THC. So we're not going to be a brand that's up 25 to 30% THC. We're going to have it marked. We have this scale that we've created. I mean, it's incredible the innovation that we're putting into this because we know our audience needs to trust it. They need to trust our intentions in doing this, and we're going to use biblical ingredients in some of the products.
And then they need to have a positive experience.
Yes.
And so by offering high CBD, low THC, where, the majority of them, they don't want to be out of their body. They don't want to have that psychoactive experience, even though they would enjoy it if they would just relax a little bit. So the fact that you're doing high CBD, low THC, they will get a little bit of that. So
Yeah.
that's exciting.
No. Yeah. So let me say one thing on that. When I first started, right out of the gate, I mean, I put this on a credit card. I just said, hey, I'm going to do it. I didn't know how to do it. My first calls for money in was do an all CBD line, never touch THC. The Christians won't do that. And it was very attractive. Like, me fund this and almost go bankrupt or take money in. Meanwhile, my wife is on RSO, which is like the highest form. And you want me to just tell people that it's just CBD? We knew you need like the
The
best
entourage
stuff.
effect
Yeah.
is
And
real.
so I was
Yes.
like, no. So I stayed the course, and I've been manifesting that we'll be acquired by an MSO, a multi state operator. We'll never have to touch the flower ourselves. We won't have to grow this state by state. We have a national audience with a national brand, and we're close. We have the best company in the world in this space that we're in negotiations with. And we'd love to have. Our thought was we're going to launch in California. I kept telling the team, I think we got a shot. There's going to be a few brands left when this is multi-state. We don't need 4,000 cannabis brands. I want to make sure Christian Cannabis is one of those, and so I think we want a pretty aggressive start right out of the gate. So we were just starting to raise some money now with this new formed company with some founders of some other big cannabis companies. But we sat down with a MSO, and they love our team. They love what we're doing, and I'm hoping that we can be have an announcement in the next couple weeks that will be in every state possible by the end of the year.
Well, that is very exciting. Congratulations, Craig.
Yeah, yeah, it's taken
God is rewarding you
everything.
for walking through the fire first,
Yeah,
right?
it's yeah, and for me, like, I know, I told people we'll build a $1 billion brand. Like, this, it's not about money for me though. Like, I didn't go almost like I have the least amount of. I sold my house, cashed in my 401k. I have the least amount of money I've ever had right now with the biggest offers on the table, and it's not about money for me. This has not ever been. Um, I don't get motivated by money, and I know we're going to make money. But this, and I'll tell the investors why we're a great investment. But this is about the plants are waking up and people are waking up along with it. And this, we talk about the Jesus movement in the 60s. I hear Greg Laurie and Billy Graham and, Rick Warren, all these guys talk about the different movements inside Christianity. Just wait till you see what happens with Christian cannabis. We're going to bring into cannabis this audience that has just been at the door because they didn't have permission. And when they start using cannabis, and I mean, think about the worship music, think about the creative. Think about the sermons that actually could be like,
Well, I'm hoping
entertaining now.
also if the majority of Christians adopt that it's okay to use cannabis, I mean, what can happen to our planet?
Yeah.
I mean, the separation that we are feeling and experiencing right now, like there is a great awakening happening, and and we joke a lot about, if we could just, send everybody a free joint in the mail or something, like just get everybody high. So if we could get the Christians high, that would be a good step.
Yeah,
And
it's been the
well,
funnest. Like, I wish I would have had a reality show of just me getting all these pastors high at my house. Like, literally.
oh my God, yeah, I would have watched that.
And watching people in a safe space. One of my friends is on my board of directors. He's like, I have to work, like to watch a 40-year-old never do cannabis and then think like, is this forever? And it's like, no, dude. Well, and people work through their fear or go, wait, what are you afraid of? Well, what is this showing you? And you can start to show people what not to be afraid of, but how this can be a teacher. And especially for pastors who think, sometimes they're the only teachers, to be knocked on their socks, by cannabis and the downloads and the information. In 2018, I had 3 Christian friends that I said, guys, we've all been smoking for a couple years, but none of us do it during the day. why don't we commit to action? I loved who I was becoming at night more than the day. And in 2018, I started using cannabis on a daily basis, whether that's CBD, whether that's a joint, whether that's, I'd never smoked flower until 2018. Because I was scared of it and I couldn't, now I was like, no, I'm going to be vocal about this. And cannabis in my life on a daily basis has been the best thing I've ever put in my body on a daily basis. Like
Yeah.
it's helped. It's helped me in
Yeah.
every mind, body, spirit alignment. And just, man, you start really looking at the cannabinoid system and the, hype, all the stuff. It's like fascinating. And I'm not that big of a geek, but I love what this does.
Yeah. And I've been putting it in my body every day for 20 years. And, people will ask, how often do you get high? And I'm like, well, if you're talking to me, I'm probably casually baked. Like that's just kind of a steady thing in
Yeah.
my body, but it allows me to stay connected.
Yeah.
But, and it's not like a lot of people think that cannabis checks you out, but if you do it right, you check in.
Yeah.
And, and that actually brings me to another one of the unchristian things that happens is the fact that people give their power away to pharma or the dogma or Hollywood or the media. We've got Christian cannabis and, and it's a brand that they can feel good about, just feeling what that is like to have that conversation with your higher self. Call it having a therapy session without leaving your house. You can have a
Yeah.
therapy session without even opening your mouth.
Yeah.
It is just like working through your shit.
Yeah.
And I will say that I have become a kinder, gentler human
Yeah.
by consuming cannabis every day.
Yeah.
And I mean, I was not a kind soul
Mhm.
in my early 20s. And, I just think that I was given the space and, like you said, that slowing down to get reacquainted with myself so that I could live my values.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
when we're constantly giving our power away, we get amped up. We get a little bit angrier. Conversations start getting a little bit more aggressive, tones start changing. And, I've people constantly wonder what I'm up to because I'm smiling all the time because, for the most part, I feel good and I'm in the moment. And, if people just give cannabis a chance, there's a whole other side of themselves that they'll discover and fall in love with.
Yeah. Yeah. I love what you said. Checks you in, not out. It doesn't, man, we're so checked into the screens and everything but being present. And it's like, it's grounding, it could take you completely out of your head as well. But I think if you find the right amounts, same thing. I used Relaxamint's 5 milligrams when I first started. They had a spray instead of like something you smoked or a little mint. And I found like just that mint, it showed me things about my body. I started getting massages and realized where I held things in my body and then was able to really connect mind, body, spirit. And I think sometimes Christians, all we are is here. Yet we have God that's here, but yet I think it's more than just here. It's all of us. And when your body, mind, and spirit are aligned and you take a hybrid and it hits your body, it might send if you've got pain or if you've got something. Sometimes I'm like, oh, what is that? Like
Yeah.
I don't know when I need to go to the dentist. Simple things like you get high and you chew some gum or eat a piece of candy, and if you have a cavity, like right away I'll be like, oh, I have a cavity. I can sense things in my body if something's off with a little bit of cannabis in my system, and I haven't been wrong. Like I'll go in, I go, oh, I have this. It's this tooth, and he's like, oh, you got a big hole in there, or you're sore, and then you're realizing. Yeah, for your body, for your mind, for your spirit. And we have a meditation on cannabisisspiritual.com. You can download this meditation. There's like a track in there too that you can read or download. But the meditation, what I would challenge people to do is just download this meditation, smoke some cannabis or take a mint, and then there's a guided meditation where it can kind of drop you into the spirit space and work with cannabis that way. Not just
Mhm.
use it, but work with it in a different setting, and see what it does.
Yeah. When you were saying that, about feeling your body and noticing, when I smoke cannabis in the morning, I do my, wake, bake, and meditate and move energy kind of routine. And I do a body scan and, just feeling all the parts of my body and incorporate that into my meditation. I am healing my body and
Yeah,
optimizing to my highest potential.
yeah,
And
yeah,
knowing that if I am of God, I am a miraculous being and I can
yeah,
help heal myself, you know?
yeah,
I don't have to always go straight into a doctor and say
yeah.
what the problem is, And so I think it's also a fun experiment to play with your capabilities as a
Hmm.
divine human.
Hmm. I Yeah, I don't think I've told anyone this, but I call them downloads. Like, however you want to call it. Like, you're in that space, you feel something, you feel it. For me, I was such in my mind. Now I know how to silence the mind, quiet the mind, and it doesn't run my life. It's quiet. It's like having my inbox at zero. I don't really check email either. So but that used to be such a thing. You have like email. Now it's like my head's clear. So when I'm in that space and I take cannabis, I oftentimes will be shown something. And sometimes those things don't make logical sense or Christian sense, but they're promptings or leadings. So I started doing whatever came in. When I realized I would sit on something and then I would do it and it would work out. So the craziest of things, it didn't matter. Anything I get, now that I know, it's not the devil. It's me as much as it's God, because it's the same, but it's like when something comes in, I'll go do it. And yeah, whether that's a crazy idea or that's, like walking into a room that I've never been in, or just or yeah,
It's
just
called inspired action.
yeah, or movie. Yeah, it's like I'm going to do it. And then I found I'll do that and it's like a domino. I don't know why I'm doing that, but I know I'm supposed to. And then you always end up in the right space. And yeah, it's the leading, it's the being. And Jesus talks about that, but I think we think Jesus was so superhuman and this and that, and he had all the power. And it's like he came here to set us free and tell us what we can do. And man, I wish more Christians would realize what Jesus was really saying. And I think cannabis, rather than a sermon with 3 points and more Bible, cannabis might speak to you more than a sermon ever has, and it won't be in words.
Yeah. And I call that voice my higher self.
Yeah.
And with cannabis, that's punny, I guess. But whatever we want to call it, we all get those downloads. And mine is a cannabis infused meditation, but also a cannabis infused shower. That's like an amazing meeting with your higher self. Like I come up with all kinds of good ideas like that. So it's like giving yourself the set and setting along
Oh
with it.
wow.
So,
What do
don't
you do in
just
the
like
shower? What do you do with a like aromatherapy? No, like, you smoke
no,
in there?
I'll get really high before I get in the shower, and then, you're just taking a long
Oh yeah.
my hair is super long, so, like, me
Okay.
washing my hair and, like, doing all the grooming, that's a long shower, so, like, just
So
having
much.
30
Yeah.
minutes of just, like, chill, relaxing, and just letting my mind go and
Mhm.
just listening to the downloads
Yeah. Yeah.
and
The,
I feel like so many
yeah.
times when people have their first experience with cannabis or figuring out how to use it, they're not thinking about a quiet, sacred space or a place where they
Yeah.
can really relax, like the infrared sauna or whatever it is. But
Yeah.
just if you want to use it and have this space of, wellness and mindfulness and reconnecting with self, then, really think about your set and setting before you have that experience so that you can experience cannabis in all of its
Yeah.
glory.
Yeah, so much stuff comes in with cannabis and water. Like I love the jacuzzi and the sauna and the steam room. When I started using cannabis regularly every day in 2018. So the
Mhm.
first thing I did was like, I'll move into the beach. I let my kids, I created a fake school, told the kids, like, this whole system's broken. You can do what you want. And then I moved to the beach. And yeah, I'm going to be a stoner at the beach. I'm going to eat pizza, sleep in, didn't hold meetings before 10. And there's two hotels across from me where I was living that had day spas. So they had memberships. So I joined both memberships because I was like, I could go any day. I could get one treatment a month. And what I would do instead of filling my schedule with the screen or doing this, I'm like, spa day. And I'd go at 9, I'd smoke. I'd come in there so ripped, or I'd be sitting there in the spa with like the locker and the robe, like smoking, and then just sit and receive. And then once a month, well, twice, because I had two memberships, you would get a massage and then work that out of your body. But then I started inviting men like to the spa with me, like business meetings, and like, no, come drop in. I need 3 hours. And here's a mint or here's something. And yeah, man, it's like, it's so good for your body. And yeah, we don't take that time. And on cannabis, you have nowhere to go. So yeah, you can go do all the things, or you could sit and man, water.
Oh no. Uh-oh. They'll come back.
I, it just died, huh? So the devil doesn't want us talking about I don't know. I don't know.
Oh,
So
this
yeah,
has been such a fun conversation. Is there something that we didn't cover that you think's important to round it out?
I think if people hear my story or just, obviously I've got, for the people that don't see what I'm seeing yet, or what Joe, what you're seeing, like listen and learn and don't write off what you don't know. And when it shows up in your life, it will probably be at a time. They say the medicine finds you. Um, and so, yeah, it's been fun the last 3 months having some people come back in my life that had thought I was crazy. And they can associate with me now, And it's like, if you have a passion, if you have something stirring in your heart, even if it goes against the norm, or if it's too early for your audience, if it's right in your spirit, do it, because anything else you do, you won't be fulfilled. It won't work. And you'll have that still small voice that becomes bigger and bigger that just overtakes you to the point of you got to try it. And so if my story inspires that, like, yeah, I was going to die trying, but I wasn't going to let my wife die without the help of something like this. And to watch it change people's lives in the way it does. Man, I'm gonna advocate for this, as long as I can. And we'll have a lot more content. We'll have a lot more things, you know. And don't be so scared of it. And yeah, it's a
You
great
know,
teacher.
I want to add to that because I feel like we need to have a message for those people who have always been the one that's like, "This is the devil's lettuce," like, "You're going to hell," and
Yeah,
now they're coming to a space where they want to change their mind, but they don't know how,
yeah,
and they don't know how to reenter and come back, 'cause people don't like to be wrong,
yeah,
and, a very early lesson that I learned as a college student was that everyone has the right to change their mind. And you embrace when you change your mind and celebrate when you learn and can do something different and accept when other people change their mind that isn't necessarily, serving your own highest good and you
yeah.
have to let them go. So, what advice do you have for people who have, shunned you or me or something like that and now they're trying to come back and re-enter that space?
Yeah, I think I talk about my old partner Jeff, or these things. The pastor that threw me under the bus. It's like, I'm not angry. I get it. Church is business, and at the end of the day, like, the pastors don't want to admit that, but they got they don't want to be wrong, and so we're oftentimes quiet. And I have compassion. I get it. I get why if we've demonized this. I've been living in Mexico for half of last year, and I was like, man, America's done such a job on Mexico as far as how we've just kind of shit on that country. And you live there, you meet the people there, and you're like, oh my gosh, like I didn't know Mexico was like this. I didn't get stolen by the cartel while I was there. It's beautiful people, and so I think with more information, yeah, it's not about don't be afraid that you were wrong. It's just like, hey, I didn't have information, and so but you can't ignore it now. There's too many things coming out there. There's a group called Radical Science. Um, Doing studies. Some of those will be published soon about just the benefits of CBD, the benefits of this stuff. So don't ignore it. And there's a chance that you have somebody in your life that's probably ahead of you in this. So show up at their house and say, you know, maybe it's not a bong rip, but it's like, hey, show me where I should start on this,
Yeah.
and see what happens.
Yeah, get curious and don't lean in and double down on your ignorance.
Yeah. So
And when you were just saying that about Mexico, it actually brought up for me what's happening in Canada and with the truckers and,
yeah,
and these people who are, fighting against mandates that are, stripping away layer of our personal freedom and sovereignty. And, the stories that get told on the mainstream media are not the stories that I'm hearing from my actual friends that live in Canada or are boots on the ground and are like, seeing this very peaceful movement of a country trying to get their power back from some totalitarian bullshit that's starting to
yeah,
happen and or that's been happening but is like coming to a head. And it's like if you don't understand something or something doesn't look right or there's a giant dumpster fire behind you or you see red flags everywhere, do more homework,
yeah, yeah,
dig deeper,
yeah,
look under the hood. Like
yeah.
what we are being shown and seen the majority of the time, my entire lifetime and the
Yeah,
5 lifetimes before that, we are constantly being fucking manipulated by
yeah,
fear and
yeah.
anxiety and people grasping for power.
Mhm.
And so this plant, half of the reason it has been held down was because of special interest, big money, and people trying to control and separate.
Yeah,
And so
yeah,
that's my ask. Get
yeah,
curious, stop being a judgy Karen.
yeah, and turn off the news. Like,
Turn it off.
the news is today, the Russia news, none of it's real. Like, they want us go look under the hood, go look at Ukraine and look at all the money. Like, you wanna see what's really going on. I mean, it's never what they tell us. And so when I hear people in cannabis that are telling me about their banks, being shut down or, even though it's legal in their state, because this isn't federally legal, like this is a hard thing. When you talk to cannabis companies in California getting taxed at 30 something percent, nobody's making money because they're making it so difficult. So to get into this space, the people that are going to stay in this space, like they're committed to it and they're not making it easy. This is still being demonized obviously on a federal level where they can just come in and wipe out your bank account. So the people that are putting products on shelves to get to you right now, like they're going through it you know,
Yeah.
to do this. And so, man, I can't
And
wait till those games are over and this is just, legal and we can have smoking or, we can, man, forget the bars with the screens and the restaurant I went to that I could just smoke cannabis when that was open in LA and just drop in with meals together. Like, we need to just let this thing out as well, not just keep it in our houses. Like, we got to change all this
yeah.
bullshit.
It's so interesting because I always knew people in my life that were like, "I'm here to be of service." My life is to be of service. And I was like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, okay, whatever." And then all of a sudden with cannabis, I was like called to service for
Yeah,
this plant. And you're right, it is so difficult. It's such a hard journey. And the people that, just look in, they're like, oh, keep doing what you're doing. It's great. But people need to know how hard it is
Yeah.
to be, a disciple for this
Yeah.
plant, and so if you do want to step into this world and share your story and share your voice, it's not going to be easy, but it will
Yeah.
definitely feed your soul.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said. So, well,
Well,
yeah, we'll keep you updated as we get products.
yes.
We'll get you some products. So,
Awesome.
yeah, I can't wait for people to see.
Tell us where we can find you on social if people want to follow what you're doing and know when everything's going to drop.
Well, I'm CraigGross.com or Craig Gross on social, but I'm blocked on almost everything because I'm into too many conspiracies, says the fact checkers of the internet these days. So go with that what you want. But and then ChristianCannabis.com. But yeah, the whole
Okay.
that's where you can find me.
So is Christian Cannabis on social? Is it at
Yes,
Christian
yeah.
Cannabis?
There's a dot in between the Christian and the cannabis. So,
Okay.
and yeah, we're ramping up all that stuff. We've been quiet just because we've been making inroads inside the industry. We'll come out with a whole content plan. I mean, my last ministry, Triple X Church, we had 14,000 pages of information on the web around porn and sex. So I think there needs to be more stuff than just like High Times. Because there's people that don't read High Times because it's called High Times. So,
Yeah.
like having some more just content is king still. And so we'll be pushing out a lot of stuff, obviously linking to podcasts like yours and just educating people on this. So then we can, once they're educated, they can come in and they can enjoy.
Right on. Well,
So,
I appreciate what you're
yeah,
doing and sending blessings to everyone, those
yeah,
who love us and those who think we're
yeah,
smoking devil's lettuce.
yeah. Thank you. All right.
Thanks for hanging out.
Thank you.
It's high time. We had a high time together. Yes, it's a high time. We had a high time together.